Good evening, everyone. As normal, we appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing some familiar faces. And as you're joining, feel free to chat us up. Let us know where you're calling in from. It always is nice to know that you guys can hear us and also see the different locations represented, different people. So it's filling up pretty fast, which is great. Tonight's going to be very educational, informative. Address many of the questions you have, and if we haven't planned to address them, we'll have Q&A. So feel free to put some, hey Laura, how are you? Feel free to put questions in the chat or the Q&A, either one, and I'll, as Jason's talking, I'll be monitoring it. We'll get to your questions for sure, and if we're able to finish early, great. We'll give you some time back, as we know time is the more precious commodity that we need to make the best use of it. As JR said, what are you going to do with the dash? My name is Eddie Alberty. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. Again, welcome everyone. I've got Jason with us. Many of you already know Jason as well as you know me, which is great. He was at our international convention and got a chance to speak to a lot of people. It was really great, I think, for Jason too, to get a heartbeat of our company, and really see what drives it and how passionate you are as unfranchised owners. So I thought that was great. And it was, great for the people that were there. That's one of the benefits about coming to the event is you get access to, some of our most trusted partners, and obviously the content and the sessions and the presentations that you guys get an opportunity to see. And I'm sure Jason will be there in Miami at the Academy, Leadership Academy, as we're calling it this year, which I really like. Jason, just so you're aware, Leadership Academy is actually even more of a training, a grassroots, not as much of the presentation glamour, but it's a lot of really nitty gritty, how unfranchised owners can grow their business. And, this is certainly a program that we're already seeing people see great success with jump starting their business with either BV and even IBV. As we know, many people, IBV is a much smaller number, but with the ERC, you can really get a lot of IBV that can not only help you, benefit you getting some checks. Hey, Fred, glad to see you're joined. Fred Bolt, I had sent him a text and an email. I wanted to make sure he got on because he's been real active, and we appreciate your support. But it's helping people jumpstart that IBV program that many of us need, as well as the retail profit is very rich. So we just last month have already awarded some retail profit, BV and IBV, all in one transaction to UFOs, and there'll be more coming next month and the month after that, et cetera. We've got a pretty good pipeline built, but tonight's goal is to help grow that pipeline even more. And it's really about you. It's about, educating you and empowering you how you can feel comfortable talking to small businesses, because there's a large part of businesses that still can apply for this and should apply. And so we'll just jump right into it. Again, Jason, thanks for joining. I appreciate your time. It's not a day goes by that we don't talk about ERC, but also just about in general, business. So we've built a really good friendship and bond. And again, he came to our event, which to me means everything. We have partners that are willing to commit to come to our event and see what it is that makes our company tick. So tonight, I think we'd like to start. I've got a brief agenda, but again, use the chat, use the Q&A, everybody. Hey, Anita, appreciate you guys joining. Again, time is valuable, and I know that there's a lot of things you could be doing with your time. So we appreciate you joining with us tonight. But I think the biggest thing, Jason, that I started getting the text messages and emails, and of course I was forwarding them on to you, was, the recent IRS kind of, I don't know if it's a mandate, but it's more of a communication, et cetera. A notice. And, I know that you originally told me, hey, it's pretty much business as usual, but it's how people are interpreting things. And you need to be careful how you read into it and what you read. So we always want to use the IRS as the source, not the news media social media, things like that. So Jason, tell us a little bit about what's going on. I think that's what a lot of people have questions about.
Before we begin, and I'll go right there. First off, number one, I want to say thank you to Market America, everybody on this call, for putting your trust in Bottom Line as your resource, the person you speak to when it comes to the employee retention credit. And as we go through tonight's conversation, I think something that I've always talked about from day one is really coming to fruition. And I promise you, I did not have the vision that this is how it was going to play out. But as long as you're on the up and up, things always play out the way they should. And, you know, Eddie, you beat me to my tagline. But what I was going to say is, no matter what happens in business, if there's one great thing I got out of this program, it's meeting you, because we have a good time, we laugh, and we do business.
That's right. That's
so
right.
I appreciate it. So the elephant in the room has been that there's been some IRS notices. And with this last one that came out, it put a real scare. The word moratorium is not fun. It's definitely not a positive in a lot of things in life. And I just want to read you what we put out as an internal memo, Eddie, and I can share it with you. And then once we go past this, I'm going to put my phone down. I don't need to look at anything, but I want to read it word for word. So this is what our internal memo was to our internal employees and whomever else wanted to see it. Regarding some of the recent news regarding the IRS shutdown, we share and have repeatedly voiced the same concern as the IRS over unethical and pop-up ERC firms lacking the stringent safeguards and commitment to transparency, accuracy, and integrity that have been hallmarks of Bottom Line since our inception in 2009. We are also concerned that clearly eligible employers who kept their employees on payroll during the pandemic may be adversely impacted by this delay or even discouraged from filing. As always, BLC is taking immediate steps to inform our staff, clients, and independent referral partners about this latest IRS update. We will continue education on the guidance as updated from the IRS related to the ERC program, which has provided vital support to qualifying small businesses impacted by the pandemic. Okay, that's what we put out there. And what has been really instrumental in why we can get up there and look everybody in the eye is that we've been around since 2009. Josh had a vision, and I will tell you in the beginning, I not fought some of it, but was shocked by it, of how he always wanted to be ahead in hiring in every department. So there was enough training and not people just coming in and taking jobs. And included in that is we built out a compliance team. We built out a team led by Sam Roney of attorneys that had prior knowledge of working in, let's say, EIDL, PPP, a whole accounting team. We made a strong push that everybody was internal that worked for us, besides our, let's say, outside lawyers / business advisors. And this is all coming to fruition of the importance of this, because if you go through our book of business, I would say less than 2% qualified for Q3. And what I always said on every Zoom is there's a reason why Q3 of 21 has a 5-year audit and the rest of the program a 3-year audit. Having someone wear a mask in an insurance office is not a reason to qualify. And all of this is now coming to fruition with these notices of these pop-up shops who are just qualifying on heartbeats, maybe doing it the right way, but what's their back-end process? On top of that, you have people that, just like in PPP, when there's a program like this, people think they can beat the system and pull off fraud, right? The only difference is in this one, it's going to be very hard because there's a 941 on file already and you need a 941X. But I promise you, people have tried to make up payroll and 941s to try and get this through, thinking I'm smarter than the government and I'm going to get a check. So between those two things and people not qualifying for right reasons, right? They had to stop for a second. And we've heard rumors about this for a couple of months, by the way. This isn't something that we weren't we were maybe shocked at the notice till January, but we knew they had to update their process. And that is that we knew that they had to find better ways of doing this versus just if you submit, you get a check. Because what's going to happen at the back end is at least a couple percentage points of clients will get audited. And it's very hard, I would assume, that once you give out this money to get it back, because let's face reality, in small businesses these days, money in, money out, right? Not everybody can work on great profit margins that they have tons of cash flow. We know what's going on in this world, this economy. People want raises just for the cost of living. So we think this is a good thing. Yes, from everybody's point of view, what is hard is that it seems like there's a huge delay. And by the way, anything I tell you about this next part is an opinion, but of talking to people, and that is 2024 seems far away, but it's not. It's right around the corner. January is not that far from now. The only thing we don't know at bottom line is once we go through our process and submit to the IRS, because we are not stopping doing what we're doing, of do these files sit in envelopes or are they getting entered into a computer? Nobody knows, or at least I don't know. And I haven't been told by my team to instruct differently. So that's what I'll say on that. Let's go to the positive of the back end of this, which this isn't a good way of showing total data because we all know there will be audits, but at bottom line, we've had less than 12. Okay. And what I will say to you is of the amount that we've had, all of them but one are still in process. And how this works is we get letters that the clients get a letter that basically said, we'd like to know more. And can you please provide information? It's everything that we ask for from the client. And then they ask for government orders and how they qualify. And we make it very clear we want to be the first phone call. And we need the help of the client, but we want to help them through the process. We never turn our back on these clients. And what I can tell you is one has been completed. And this is not going to be the norm. Okay. And we don't expect this to ever happen again. But that first client was told that we were too conservative and got additional funds. That is a true story. And my whole point of that is that we've always taken a conservative approach to this program, and we will continue to, because we don't want to get into the line of fire, right? This program is up for interpretation. And we always interpreted it that even though it's a federal program, we have to follow state executive orders, and we will continue to. So that's where we're going to take this. That's where we're going to go. I think that we are in a good place, and there are still a large amount of American businesses that need to know about this program and get the help and support that we can provide them. The last thing I will bring up, because if anybody is into this program, you are going to hear about layoffs and companies closing. The program's still alive and well. I don't know the reasons why you're going to hear these things about the companies. I don't know the reasons why. Are they pop-ups? Are they doing things that were illegal? Are they scared? Or are they just saying, we made enough money, we're out? I don't know the answer. I just know that we are all in and will continue to stand what we stand for. And I will tell you all what I told Eddie, and I've told other people that, have groups like yourselves. We've always communicated. We continue to communicate the good and the bad. And as we get updates and notices, good or bad, we will always maintain our reputation of sharing that with our referral partners.
Great. Great. I have a quick question. As you were talking, something that popped in my mind. You talked about the percentage, you being conservative, et cetera. And I remember you saying, I don't remember the exact percentage, but that there was a pretty large percentage of business that you guys, told no, or, they didn't qualify, or it wasn't the right fit, et cetera. And I know that percentage, I'm curious to know what it is, but also I think it's good for us as unfranchised owners to realize that, hey, don't be discouraged if the business that you refer, it doesn't qualify. It's just a matter of getting them the opportunity for you guys to evaluate it. And the more of those that you do that, you'll have those that will get approved, of course. But I know that there's a large part that you guys don't, you turn away basically and say, hey, it's not the right fit. What percentage is that? Just curious if you know.
So the percentage is about 40, it's coming out to about 40%, right?
Wow.
But it's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
It's because what the IRS says is that your change had to be more than nominal, which is 10%. And again, I'll use the perfect example to say I work in an insurance office and I just had to go work from home. What's the impact?
Good point.
I don't mean this in a negative way at all, but if you're just pushing paper and going through PDFs and emails and responding, there's probably facts that prove you get more work done from home than going to an office. So what's the nominal impact?
Right.
Right. It's not like a restaurant that had to close its indoor dining and go to other ways of food and beverage sales. And even if they just went to outdoor dining, I was talking to a guy that owns the pizzeria in my town. He's like, you don't understand what a mess it is. If you look at the restaurant of where we set up our indoor tables to the kitchen, now we have to walk through the place. Please don't think it's the same. So, that's what they mean by a more than nominal impact. And we take that seriously. Another thing that I like to say is over time, we've improved our questionnaire. Why? When there's an audit, you don't get the same agent every time. And let's face reality, it is subjective, even when you're working with an agent. So as we get asked questions, just to make sure we have all our ducks in a row, we just keep adding to the questionnaire so that if there is an issue, over time, we'll just have all the questions answered.
Sure.
And by the way, we want to help these businesses. Believe me, we're not looking to throw businesses out. Right? We don't.
But you also don't want to help them at the risk that they don't meet the qualifications, and then down the road they have issues with the, audit or whatever the case may be.
Totally. And look, we know at some point they're going to come into us and say, "What's your process?" And I promise you, we've done practice tests, practice audits to make sure that we are doing things, if not 100% right, at least on the up and up to get things right.
Yeah.
Right? And again, very, very fortunate. Believe me, I've had opportunities to leave. I'm very fortunate that I always knew that what was very important in this business was being at the right company and doing things right. Because it's scary what I know other people have done out there.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys have, it's a lot of people know that, you guys, Mr. Wonderful endorses you guys. And I mean, I know he's, motivated he does a lot of things. He's a shark, et cetera. But I mean, he obviously wouldn't be endorsing a company that was a pop-up shop that didn't have credibility, that he didn't know was going to, he's got his whole name and influence out there. Oh. And I'm sure even some of his referrals that you probably have to turn away, or that come
his are included in the percentage, 100%. Right. And what I'll also say, listen, I don't want to, turn this to him, but he's all in, including what's gone on with all the articles that have come out in the past couple of months, right? When they were trying to interview us, he'd be the first to say, let them interview me. Let them interview me. Right? Because I know, look, has he had mistakes in life? Absolutely, right? We're all human. We all make mistakes. It's what you do, what you learn from those mistakes, right? That matters. And, listen, he always talks about how many firms he interviewed. How does he work with us? How's this going to go? He knows the power of his voice. And we have an amazing, amazing relationship, not only with him personally, but his team. And I promise you, he is still all in.
I was muted. Also,
I want to look at some of these questions here real quickly. So first, Diane Dubage. I am a CPA. Isn't the IRS great? I deal with their constant changes for years. Diane, I hope I did a good job in explaining myself tonight, because now I see that there's someone on here who can, judge me. Let's see. Can MA send us that BLC info he just read and said Yeah. Ginny, no problem. Eddie, just do me a favor. When we're done, if you just send me an email, internal memo,
Yeah.
I'll have Alejandro send it to you and share it, please. Like,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we're an open door. What is the real relationship with Mr. Wonderful by your company? Guys, he's a referral partner. Like, we do not pay him for advertising. We do not pay him a fee to say bottom line. Okay. What I can tell you is I know a bunch of other people there that are out there that are getting that. We just didn't want that. We wanted somebody that believed in us and believed in the process and believed taking this through. That was very important to us. And no matter who we worked with, believe me, we've had some really big name business people out there that approach us and say, give me X dollars a month and I'll promote you. And we say no. And by the way, the amount of business they can get is probably a lot, but it's just not our business model. Like, you're either all in with us or you're not. Trust the process or don't. Erica, no problem sharing that memo out to the prospects. Right.
You know, my thoughts is that once I get it, we can put it. I'm sure you guys probably will have it posted on your website. I don't know, but we probably will put it in our learning center and you know, something of that nature. That way they have access to it and can get information from it, etc. You know, switching gears a little bit, because we can always come back to that if we get some questions up here. But you know, there's still time left, you know, that businesses qualify. And I know that you've seen a lot of successful referrals go through. I'm looking at our list and I see, you know, a lot of good stuff going on. I mean, we have one business that's getting over $1 million back, you know, and we have 50 or so deals that are, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is going to be a lot of, again, retail profit, BV and IBV to our unfranchised owners, which, as you have learned, Jason, that drives, you know, what they do and that their behavior. So that's great. They should be rewarded for their referrals. But what types of businesses do you think moving forward, does it change any? Or, I mean, you made the reference to restaurants. Obviously, a restaurant is like a really good one, but they also probably don't have 100 employees. So, like, are there any categories that you think we should be leaning into? And then other question I have, but I'll let you answer that one first. I got a follow-up question to it.
So here's what I'm going to say to this, right? And my joke always is, the last time someone handed me any money, it was no problem going into my bank account. I've always taken the approach in this business, 5 to 500 employees is what the program does. I understand everybody thinks bigger equals better opportunity for themselves, but you know, helping a business with 5 people, 30 people, 50 people, just as good. What happens in those situations too is usually you're dealing with one decision maker. You don't have to deal with compliance and many people. So I've always told people, don't worry about employee count, right? Because what's the goal here is to help American businesses, American small businesses. So it's just a conversation. Have you heard of the employee retention credit? Did you file for it? So to me, the employee count does not matter at all. And I'm a referral partner like everybody else. And then the second part of the question is into industries. Again, since day one, I've always said, yes, there's easier low-hanging fruit, but I believe this is a conversation for every business because it's business specific, not industry specific. Before you go, Eddie, I saw something, Fred, we spoke about bottom line providing a field rep. I don't know if he just meant, if you guys have specific situations where you need specific advisors and only want to work with 1 or 2 advisors most, okay? What I can tell you is reach out to me and Eddie and I will make it happen, okay? I want this to be a great experience for everyone.
One thing I was going to say.
Anita, hold on,
Yeah,
Anita, sorry. It has nothing to do with profits for the year, right? There's a revenue decline or a change of operations. And in the change of operations, what was your impact? What was your full or partial suspension that you had to get through? So for example, restaurants went from indoor dining to other ways of food and beverage sales. Serve pros, they usually have about 15 to 17 employees, and at least 3 are in marketing that did a lot of trade shows, home and garden, local street fairs. They had to find ways for these 3 employees to find other things to do to drive marketing. So that's more than 10% of their employees had to be changed. So there's many ways to look at this 10%, but we have to quantify this objective.
There's one in the Q&A too, if you like, I can read it.
Read it.
It says, how will businesses that were approved, or I assume already approved prior to this information that came out from the IRS, how will they be affected, if you know?
So here's my gut. As long as you were in before September 14th, what I will say to you is there might be a couple week delay while they're going through some things, but they say that they are still processing those. And one thing I left out in the memo that the IRS put out is that they had a backlog of 637,000 files. Okay. So we also have to throw into the mix that that's what they're trying to clean up throughout the rest of the year. So what they're saying is any file that was submitted before September 14th, yes, there might be a couple week delay, but they are going to continue through the process. Just the new files will not start to January, but based on what I just said, there was a good chance they weren't starting in January anyway.
There's a couple others in here. One I wanted to read before it got away from me is because we were talking about Spanish speaking, et cetera. And the question is it easy for a Spanish speaking business owner to be funneled to a Spanish bottom line concept?
If you go to our calendars, you can choose English or Spanish.
Yeah. And then the other one I think that was previous to that it's a little long, but I'll read it. Basically, the individual keeps running into small businesses who think their CPA or bookkeeper filed for them and got them ERC money. I then ask are you sure you got everything you can get? Any chance you can introduce me to your CPA? And they fade out of the conversation. And I'm sure we did fine. Have you gone directly to bookkeepers and CPAs about their clients and not get cut out of the process?
Okay. So again, unfortunately, that's the risk, is that there's no aces in the hole in this space. So the risk is they go back to their CPA or bookkeeper. But one of the questions, so first off, if their bookkeeper or CPA did it, I struggle with understanding how they would not be told from them that they're filing for this. Okay. Have I heard of it happening? Yes, but I scratch my head, because unless you have one employee, it's a 5-figure check, usually. But if I had to go further down this path with somebody, what I'd be asking is, okay, great, that's your CPA bookkeeper filed for it. Do you know how many quarters they filed for or what quarters they filed for? And the only reason I'm asking is there's 2 ways to qualify. One is specific and one is subjective. And from the specific point of view, a lot of times they just look at the revenue decline because it's specific. 100 minus 20% is 80. And to me, that's all you can do is say, hey, listen, we've seen this happen before. If you want to find that out, there might be an opportunity that you might be able to qualify for other quarters. It just takes 10 minutes of your time to hear it through. And you can lead a horse to water. You can't make them drink it.
There was another one in here too. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you.
Diane, how am I doing, Diane? Am I doing good?
Yes, you said you were doing great.
Okay, perfect.
I have a question, Jason, and I think we've asked this before, but it comes up often and I know I had an opportunity to meet one of your other referral partners that lives here in the Greensboro area, and he's been very successful. And it was good to hear kind of his approach and how he did things and what worked for him. And I know everyone's going to be a little different, but in a perfect world, how do you suggest a person best, cultivate possible referrals? Obviously, if they spend money at the business. I know you kind of said that in earlier webinars. Hey, where do you spend your money? You go to the dentist. What restaurants do you eat at? Kind of making that list is always a good place to start because you're a patron of the business, so you're familiar with it, et cetera. But do you recommend? I know that some people are doing emails, calls. Not a day goes by I get a robocall, and I don't even let it get past the first few sentences. So that just doesn't, in my opinion, work. At least it wouldn't be the way I would approach it. I'm sure it works for a lot of people, but do you think the preferred way to kind of approach a referral?
So, it's interesting. I was at a conference this weekend and this whole subject came up, and, what this other referral partner, his name is Jack, but it was months ago, was he literally went door to door to the local businesses, and he was very trusted.
He told me the one thing that stood out to me that night was he says, Eddie, he says, I had a pamphlet, like kind of the criteria. I had it, looking, professional so that he could easily, make sure, kind of go down the criteria list. But he said that he gave him his business card. He goes, hey, I live here in this area. So I'm not like calling you from, the other side of the country, just trying to solicit for the business. Like, I live here, and, you can, there was that trust he immediately established. And then he said, like you said, he went face to face, and he asked for, the business decision maker, the owner, the manager, that type of thing, and got to the right person, and then, shared with him what the opportunity was. He goes, hey, if you just give me, I think it was like 10 minutes of your time, I can save you probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe, who knows? And
so, but what I will tell you is, when I was at this conference this weekend and this topic came up, and this woman got interviewed, actually, it's pretty interesting. What she said is, she would walk into business, if the manager wasn't there, right, or the decision maker wasn't there, she didn't stop there, because what she learned is usually that owner is not in the front. So if they weren't available, maybe she'd get a name or this and do what she had to do. But then she would go home and call.
Yeah.
And she had great success.
Yeah, it makes sense, because a lot of times if you they're not at the front, like you said, they're at the back, or they may be working off site or whatever. But if you call and you have you request, then they can probably get you to the right person.
Correct. And so, but the thing is, to this day, we still see every which way work, in person, emails, cold calls. It works. It's just a matter of being the best at what you do. It's just like in selling every other Market America product, right?
Yeah.
You have a way of selling it, and either you're great at it or not. But I will guarantee one thing: whoever is successful at it, practice.
Yeah.
So
I agree with that. I think the biggest challenge that people have with a lot of things, but with this especially, and I had it a little bit, is it's analysis paralysis. You try to figure out all the things you need to know, when really you don't need to know a whole lot, other than running it up the flagpole, putting it in front of the business owner or the decision maker, and setting that appointment, which is very easy. That's the whole key. You set the appointment, you shut up, you let bottom line concepts do their thing, and you have trust in that, because you guys do what you do, and you specialize in it, so you can answer all the questions. Whereas if you start going down that rabbit hole, trying to know everything, there's going to be a lot that you don't know, and you're going to then look incompetent, or not like you don't know what you're doing, because it's it's hard to know it all. I mean, you guys study, what is it, a 32-page kind of thing that came out? I mean, it's a lot,
Well, I don't know what. So there's, this is all based on the employee retention. There's supposedly over 170 pages of rules and laws. We have people behind the scenes that are always looking at that. To be honest with you, I stick to the IRS FAQs, right, and internal updates, right. It can be info to nauseum.
Yeah.
So. And if you start
again, I think the biggest thing is people just need to get out there and approach business.
Need to get out there and ask, are you interested? Do you have 5 employees or more? And by the way, if you look around the place and see you have it, you don't have to ask the question, right? If you know a place has been open since February 15th, 2020, I mean, before then, you don't have to ask the question. And then just say, hey, it's 10 minutes. Can we set up a call? What's the worst thing that happens? You find, you know, what's the best part, my new thing? Because you're right. People bought lists and people are getting bombarded. You know what's the best thing? And I had this conversation with a federal credit union CEO the other day. By the time you're done with bottom line, you should know your decision is yes or no at that point of whether you qualify, and you can, start deleting and stop thinking about all the emails are getting on a daily basis, right? Because these lists are everywhere. And I want to add to my conversation with Diane. I love talking to CPAs about this. On this stage this weekend, they asked somebody, how do you handle the accountant? And they stood up there and they said, Jason gave me the best piece of advice. And that was, no matter what somebody says to you, you always have to go positive on the accountant. You can never turn this into you versus an accountant, because I won't make one guarantee. You lose.
Yeah.
Right? It's always, hey, I understand that your accountant has other things he has to do. This is not his top priority. We work with many accountants and we're just asking you for a 10-minute call. We're not saying you have to do this.
Right.
But don't turn this into your accountant doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
Because most likely their accountant does. He just has a different opinion.
Right.
And just like accountants do what they do best, we have a full staff that's only working on this.
Right. Yeah. So again, I mean, I just think the biggest thing is getting it in front of business owners, because it's a little bit of a numbers game. I mean, if you refer one, it's just like having one prospect in the Market America business. If you only have one, you're like so dependent upon them coming to the meeting or actually signing up in the business or, deciding it's something that they want to do. If you've got 10 prospects or 10 possibilities, as JR always said, you got to fill the bean jar and the big nuts rise to the top, and that's kind of how this is. If you fill the bean jar, you fill the referrals, you're going to get some that are going to get through, and they're going to, and then the nice thing about it is you're not dependent upon when that's coming in. They're going to start to come in. You're not like hinging upon that one deal. If you can get one, if you can approach a business owner to get one, there's no reason why you can't get 20 or 30 or whatever it is. It's whatever your number wants to be. It's just a matter of what time you spend on it. And again, filling that bean jar, filling that referral pipeline, to let you guys do your thing and qualify them.
Yeah. There's a couple of questions here, Eddie. Fred, in regards to timeframes, most companies that when they're looking into ERC, they're looking at the program as a whole from day one. They're not doing 2020 and saying, call me later about 21. So the rules are that as of today, for 2020, you have until April 15, 2024. And for 21, you have till April 15, 2025. But what I say to everybody is, if you were concerned that you did not qualify for 20, how in the world did you qualify for 21? COVID was rampant in 20. So I believe now is the time, because people in 20, after April 15, 2024, you're going to have it's going to become really hard to sell, especially businesses under 100 people that can qualify for 20. Make no sense to me unless they just were so busy they forgot to do it. And then the other question here is from Juanita. Does this acquire for U.S. territory, all states, or does it include U.S. territories like Puerto Rico? Any territory, all states, as long as there's W-2s and they file 941s. Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, as long as they are filing 941s, they should have a conversation to understand what the ERC is and help make a decision of whether or not they should proceed. And one thing that I do want to say is, it's not a matter of approving, right? Because there's no place to go on the IRS website, type in the business and say, do I qualify, yes or no? What we're looking at here is how strong of a case. Do you meet that 10% threshold, right? Because at this point, and again, there might be another notice, whoever files for it will get it. Right? They're not asking those questions. But we just want to make sure that people meet what the IRS states about the nominal. And I'll tell you, there are people out there that say that nominal does not make sense and you don't have to have nominal. But we're just trying to follow what the IRS puts out there in their writings.
Yeah, and the other thing too, I think goes without saying, but we've talked about it many times, but not only the credibility that you guys bring to the table with the way you approach these referrals and how you qualify them or tell them that they, should file. But it's also the fact that, after this is over, and if the IRS is looking and decides to do an audit, et cetera, a lot of these pop-up shops or people that just got in the game because of ERC, they're going to be gone. The business has their money, then there's an audit and there's no one, they're left holding the bag. There's no one there to kind of support them. You guys don't take that approach. You're going to be around, you're in business 2009. You told me about some cool products you guys got coming out after this or coming out soon. So it's, you're going to be around for those people that you file for or that, you help file and you would assist in that process.
100%. Like the audit is, honestly, I've always said it doesn't matter what people charge in contingency fees, whether it's on or off 5%. If somebody is not around and the IRS comes calling for money, you can't turn to them and say, well, I paid firm ABC a percentage of that money and I can't pay that back. They don't care.
Right.
Right. And I hate to say this, but you can negotiate with a vendor. Good luck negotiating with the IRS. All right. Yeah. You want to be with a firm that you believe is going to be here today, tomorrow, years from now, or at least the audit period years from now. Because look, I promise you, when a company gets audited, our fee is eaten up. And even if money still has to be given back afterwards, we still give our percentage back. We're not looking to make this like, yo, go figure this out. We're your teammate from start to finish. And then even after you get your checks, we're still available. Especially after this notice where the IRS told people, if you believe you didn't qualify, just give your money back. Okay, we've had people call us. We have a conversation and we either walk them off the ledge or we say, okay, maybe you don't qualify. And if you want to take that route, no problem. We're not here to steer. We're not here to bully people. We're here to educate, help them understand the ERC and take them through the process.
Any other questions that are coming in? I'm going to answer Fred's question. I was typing, but I think that this is very helpful because I think for a lot of people, it was like the text messages I got and the emails was like, oh, so we can't do this anymore. I said, whoa, no, that's not what I'm hearing. I went right to the source, basically our trusted partner. And it's not something that you need to really change or do, it's business as usual. With that being said, there could be other, releases that come out, et cetera. But for now, it's business as usual. So you might as well approach businesses. And it may be harder now because it's probably more people are doing it or more people have heard about it. It's a little bit more competitive. But one of the things that I remember that you had said is that, hey, Eddie, we want to help businesses get what they deserve. And if it means taking a less contingency fee, et cetera, like we're a little bit more negotiable than we probably were at the very beginning. We want to get as many deals through as we can by help, because that helps these businesses and helps everyone involved. So I thought that was encouraging. And, you don't need to get into specifics, but I think the fact that your goal is to qualify businesses that are, deserve it and get those deals done. And if it means, because there's other people that are quoting them or, trying to get their business too, or contingency fees, you guys are going to be very competitive, I guess, with what's out there, which I think is great.
So listen, I just want to end it with, unless there's more questions of, please feel free to reach out to whether myself, RP at bottomlinesavings.com, someone on my team, myself, Eddie. please feel free to reach out at any time for us to answer any questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it. That's another thing, and I've said this before, for many of you that have been on these webinars, you've heard it, you're probably tired of hearing it, but at the end of the day, Jason's always made himself available, whether it's an issue, an opportunity, clarification. It could be very simple. And whether, we text, we email, he jumps on calls with our IT team when we're working out how to do the awards, the rewards, the BV, the retail profit, and, when we're going to get paid. I mean, I can't tell you how comforting is to have a partner like that, like yourself, Jason. So I just want to say thank you. And
Everything you guys do, man.
Yeah, and you make yourself accessible, and I want to do the same. So for any unfranchised owner that doesn't already have my business card or email address, you can always reach out to me, and I have a direct line to Jason. So last question coming in, and then we're probably going to close up, is where does the QR code on the sales material connect to? That QR code is generated, after you've signed up, you have your referral link. So then when you go to download the leave behind piece, as I call it, or the print material piece, the QR code is automatically generated. It's your QR code. It's going to take them to your referral link. So the business that scans that QR code and signs up, you're getting credit. We made sure of that. We did have a few little issues early on, but no issues with it. It works perfectly. So Jason, thanks for your time. Again, appreciate everyone that attended. We really appreciate it. There'll be more of these to come. Thank you for your time. Have a blessed evening, everyone. Thank you.